Jim, I know you don't like it, but please explain why.
Before I did, I just want to agree with you about the drone shot stuff. I think a lot of it was great. The only drone shots that I wasn't a big fan of were I don't even know how you would describe them, like the structure shots of the drones.
I like the action drone shots, the way drones are used in action scenes. I don't like when it's just like, oh, let's have a shot start from above a skyscraper and then go down to the... Like, they did that, like, 3 or 4 times, it seemed like.
Yeah, there was one where
I don't get
when they were at the bank, the drone kind of like took off and zoomed around the bank as it kind of shot off into the air, and I was like, why? And it just made me feel nauseous. I was like, why? Why are you doing this? But all the action drone stuff I thought was really neat. Car chase stuff was really interesting.
Also, can I say a couple more things? Yeah. So, again, I'm going off of Michael Bay's reputation and the Michael Bay films that I've seen, which is not many. But I want to applaud him for not doing 2 things that, to my knowledge, he does all the time. One, gay character, we're not making fun of him, he just happens to be gay. Mm-hmm. Good on you. I mean, it's like the bare minimum, right? But and I don't know if that's Michael Bay realizing, it's 2022, people don't like this stuff, or if it's just, Michael Bay didn't write this movie. I don't know if he wrote The Rock, he might have. And then the other thing is, Isa Gonzalez, one of the most gorgeous women who is in Hollywood, is not sexualized in any way. She just happens to be gorgeous, and she's in an ambulance with blood all over her shirt like that. Yeah. I'm just thinking of the famous Megan Fox shot over the hood of the car, and how he typically shoots women. And again, I don't know if this is Michael Bay changing with the times, or if it's just I don't know, we just don't have time to sexualize her. But good on you, Michael Bay. You met the bare minimum of human decency, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's actually funny that you say that, because in this movie, they did have the time to sexualize her. It's 2 hours and 16 minutes, but the movie could have been maybe an hour.
Well, they had the run time. They didn't, but there's so much stuff going on with the action. They didn't have the. They couldn't fit it. They didn't get a chance to storyboard the scene where she takes off her bloody shirt and switches into a non-bloody shirt so we can see her bra and stuff. They didn't do that.
Yeah. My biggest... when it comes to the writing about, in this movie, it seems like all of, the most tropey action writing from, the late 80s and 90s was taken and just transplanted into this movie.
You say that... I don't know. You say that it's a bad thing, and I think
no, but for me, I was just so annoyed. Here's a slight tangent here, and you actually made me watch 3 seasons of Peaky Blinders, and you don't know this. I haven't brought this up to you yet. We were recording a podcast on something.
I wasn't even sure it was pronounced Blinders. I thought it might be Blinders for some reason.
You were talking about Peaky Blinders, and I was like, oh, you know what? I saw that on Netflix. And as you were talking about it, I was like, that was on Netflix. I'm going to watch it. I got 3 seasons in, and that's because I think there's only 4 seasons, but I mostly had it on in the background while I was doing things. But it had a style of writing that pisses me off so much, and that's what this movie kind of had a lot of. And it's that
really. So one of the most, you're complaining about this film bearing resemblance to one of the most acclaimed television shows of the 21st century, just for the record.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's because it's got this style of writing that I hate, where you have a character who's meant to be really good at what they do, but they just write the person to come across as an asshole, an all-knowing asshole. When FBI guy meets SIS guy, he's like, yeah, can we just cut the crap where you say, oh, I know how to do my job? And
that was one 30-second long scene, and I agree it was stupid, but who cares?
But there was other stuff involved where Jake Gyllenhaal said throwaway lines here and fucking whatever. But Peaky Blinders had that same problem for me where I don't know. If you're interested, we can get into that some other time off mic. But
I've never seen the show, so I don't know what you're talking about. But
maybe I'll have my own hour-long complaint session about Peaky Blinders.
Well, that'll get clicks.
The writing I found was too hacky. I just couldn't focus on what was happening because the writing was pretty, in my opinion, pretty bad. I don't know how to make it better. I'm not a fucking writer, or so maybe I'm just talking out my ass. I don't know, but it just annoyed me. The plot was very light. And it almost...
Well, sure, it's a high-concept movie. I mean, there's not a lot of plot in Die Hard either. It's I'm not saying this movie's Die Hard, but
yeah.
It's a high-concept movie. It's how can we have an action movie in this setting reverse engineer
this
it.
was,
We got a bank robbery and a hostage situation. It's like Speed.
But this was how this turned out. It was bank robbery to accidental hostage situation to driving fast, medical emergency. Driving fast, medical emergency. Driving fast, medical emergency, end. You know? And it was just like, how many times can this fucking poor cop who's been shot in the leg have a terrible, life-threatening medical emergency?
Yeah. They stretched that out, like he hasn't died yet, and again, there's no way they're saving his leg, but whatever.
No, and it was just, it just
he's
annoyed
lost
me so
several
much.
pounds of blood at this point.
Yeah, he has. He really has. And then, like, when main characters are doing kind of dumb things, you know, like Jake Gyllenhaal letting the cop into the bank for no reason. Or like a cop essentially forcing his way into a bank to hit on a teller? Like, what normal person does that? You know what I mean? Like, if I knocked on the door of my bank trying to hit on a teller, and they're like, hey, we're closed for 20 minutes, I'd be like, yeah, okay, no worries, I'll wait. Thanks. You know, or
yeah, but he's
like,
a cop.
He
feels
tomorrow.
Entitled. Listen, you forget the part where all cops are assholes. You forget that part. That's a key component, at least of that plot point.
Is it though? Is it, or is that something you're just?
I think it is. I don't think it comes up later in the film, but I think he thinks like, oh, listen, no, I'm a cop. You gotta let me in. I think that's the subtext.
Okay,
it's the only moment of the film that has subtext, but
that would be. Well, I don't know. I didn't pick up on that subtext. I just thought, I was like, this is a really awkward and clunky way to get the cop into the bank.
And it was. I don't disagree.
Well, then the stuff with, like, the SIS guy and, like, how his comic relief woman character that's there, she was awful.
Yeah, she was bad.
All the dialogue between them was terrible. The stuff all involving his dog was stupid.
Sure.
The joke about big dog getting out of a small car. Why? Like,
was that I didn't even pick up on that. I thought the joke was just that it's a giant dog. I didn't think the size of the car mattered.
Yeah, it was like this tiny little, like, foreign car that he was driving.
Well, yeah, it's the Columbo thing. He's driving a piece of shit car and he's got a big old ugly dog. I didn't think, but whatever. That's the dog himself.
I
not
did like
necessary
the dog.
to the plot. we could have gotten rid of the dog.
Not necessary to the plot. And then like when all the cops had to pull back because the dog's in the back of the car, I'm like, is this what's actually happening in this movie? Like, I can't.
So let's think of it from like a writing perspective. What are the other instances in which the cops had to pull back and we had to stop a fast-paced action scene? There was when they were doing surgery. There was... Which
is also stupid. There's also the fact that there's an injured cop in the back of the ambulance, so they don't want to end the chase in the first 10 minutes and ram the ambulance.
Which you could say carries throughout the entire film, but I don't know how much of that is really true.
There was the fact that ambulance outmaneuvered all cop cars and caused them all to crash into each other. So they had to. Well, and there's
the big one though is they assumed the surgery didn't go well. They assume the cop died because I think the phone ran out of batteries, so they couldn't hear the rest of the call. So then they try to snipe the driver,
and then Cam stands up and she's like, "Oh my god, there's snipers! Get down!" I'm like, "What the fuck are you doing? Let them kill them." And then, you know what? Even if there's a fucking concrete barrier,
hang on, no, you think if. You think if you're in a vehicle that's going 75 miles an hour on an on-ramp and someone shoots the driver, you think you're going to survive that?
Maybe. Who knows?
No. I think you could pretty confidently say, no, you're not going to.
This chase has been going on for, like X amount of hours. Dozens of people are maimed or seriously injured or dead. And it's like, oh, well, there's this one fucking cop in the back of this car who has a crush on some fucking teller named Kim. And his life is the most fucking important thing on the planet right now. It's so fucking stupid. It's just, they pulled out every excuse in the book.
At that point, it's self-preservation. She doesn't care.
But they pulled out every excuse in the book, Patrick, to make this movie as long as possible and to make this, like, ambulance chase as long as possible. And then, like, all the shit about the Mexican gang filling an ambulance with C4 and driving it. Why? What are they doing that? Well, like, why? Why did that happen?
I can't really answer that question.
Why were the Mexican gangs
but I also don't
creating
care.
a war with the cops by shooting a minigun into 50 cops and their cop cars? Like, so much in this movie didn't make sense. And like, if half of the stuff that didn't make sense made sense, I might have enjoyed this movie a little bit more. But I was sitting down for 2 hours and 16 minutes watching this, being like, what am I watching? What is happening? What is the point of all of this?
Hang on.
Sorry,
everything in this movie makes sense. Because there's not depth to anything.
Varying degrees of sense.
What doesn't make sense? Well, yeah, and that's fine. I mean, like, what's the Mexicans start a gang war, or not a gang war, but a war with cops, and it's because they have a chance. They have all these cops in this place, and they're going to just shoot them all up, like, because I guess they hate cops, because that's, later on they want to kill the one already dying cop. They hate cops, so we have 30 cops gathered. Hey, we can get rid of them all here, Like, it's stupid, but it makes sense. And also, a nitpick that I'm surprised you haven't brought up yet. There are several lines of dialogue, almost entire scenes are dedicated to rush hour is approaching. We need to put a stop to this before rush hour. And then rush hour, I guess, happens and nothing really changes.
No, exactly.
And the implication is that obviously we have millions of people on the road, but it really, I mean, at least the way they shoot it, it doesn't really feel like any different than how it was earlier.
There's just things that they don't go back to, right? Or there are just things that they don't really explain. You're just kind of shown these things or told these things, and then nothing comes back or nothing's explained, much like the remote-controlled Mexican car. Who's controlling it? From where? Why are they doing this? Do they have other cars with miniguns? Like, how come they brought a minigun in C4 after Danny said, no, don't bring that shit?
Because they don't work for him. They're doing this for the money, but they're going to do other shit too. They don't work for him. Poppy doesn't control him, or he doesn't control Poppy.
I guess so. For a movie that's 2 hours and 16 minutes, and again, I can't stop harping on about this because, like, it could have been so much shorter, but for a movie that's this long, they could have maybe cut down on so much of the other, like, fluff and faff and explained things a little bit better. Or added
what
more of a
needed
character
to be explained
to these
more? I don't know. It's just a high-concept movie about an ambulance chase. I don't think anything needed to be explained any more than it was. I think this is perfectly standard. This is, like, whatever.
I was just floored by this movie, and I don't know. I just really didn't like it. I'm just really upset right now, to be honest.
All your bullshit is making me like this movie more, honestly. I'm like, how could you have a problem with this movie? It's a dumb action movie that's perfectly exciting.
It was just, like, too dumb for me. And I was just like, I don't know.
You like spookies.
Yeah, but that's stupid funny. Because it's, like, such a fucking...
There's nothing funny about
but it's, like,
spookies.
such a joke.
Sucked.
But it's such a joke. Like, I like Neil Breen movies because they're so fucking ridiculous. But
I agree, Neil Breen movies are funny. I don't think...
But this is, like, an actual movie made by, like, an actual big-name director starring, like, Jake Gyllenhaal. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, there's real actors in this.
To me, this movie just felt like one of those, like, Bruce Willis movies, that he was making, like, last year, 2 years ago. Like, really, the only thing that set it apart was, like, the drone shots and the amount of money that went into, like, explosions and car chase stuff. Like, that was the only thing that set those apart from this.
The drone shots are the real new thing. And then also, like, the heist angle. You know what this reminded me of? This felt like a Fast and Furious movie. It's dumb. It's about family. The Fast and Furious movies, they used to be movies about drag racing. And now they're just heist movies, and they drive a car here and there. That's kind of, and this is like, it's a heist movie. And then there's also a lot of driving. And the over-the-top action, not as over-the-top as a Fast and Furious movie. This doesn't go into full science fiction mode or fantasy,
Yeah.
I don't want to really say this movie's that grounded, but at least I felt like the action was believable enough. It wasn't too dumb. And the real dumb stuff comes with, like, oh, the cop is still alive or whatever. But no, I don't know. I thought this was just a rip-roaring good time. This is a shut your brain off and enjoy movie, and I think it's very good at doing what it did.